The Galactic Council didn't think twice. To them, it was a routine enforcement of interstellar code, a mere formality, a minor detainment. A single human, taken in silence during a diplomatic summit on Viral 7, vanished without trace. They believed no one would notice. Earth was still young by galactic standards, barely scratching the surface of warp dynamics. Its reach limited to a few trading posts and science satellites. Humanity had a seat at the table, yes, but only a decorative one. The Council saw them as emotional, unpredictable, sometimes clever, but ultimately harmless. That's what made their error so profound. The human's name was Lyra Holt, a theoretical physicist. Quiet, not a soldier, not a spy, just a young woman with unruly curls, a half-smile, and eyes always half lost in thought. She was attending the summit as part of a scientific delegation studying gravitational harmonics across multi-body systems, a harmless academic field. But Lyra had asked the wrong question during a closed session about anomalies in a quarantined binary system that the Council deemed classified. Hours later, she disappeared. Her ID was wiped, her room erased, her ship removed from dock records. The Council had done this before, to other species, other outliers. It was never public, never loud, but always final. They underestimated one crucial variable. Lyra was human, and not just any human. She was the daughter of Admiral Cale Holt, Supreme Commander of Earth's Outer Defense Network. The Council had read her as an academic, detached from politics and power. They missed the bond between her and her father, forged not by rank, but by shared tragedy. They didn't know that Cale Holt had lost his wife during the Titan outbreak, had raised Lyra alone aboard deep space installations, had taught her the stars not through books, but through battle maps. When she was taken, he didn't rage. He didn't threaten. He simply vanished from his post. 3 days later, Earth's entire moon relay network went dark. Every long-range communication hub across the Sol system stopped transmitting simultaneously. Interstellar Traffic AI flagged the event, but no explanation followed. Council analysts dismissed it as a software glitch. That was the last day the Council's moons remained untouched. At first, the disappearances seemed unrelated. One by one, moons across Council territory vanished from observation grids. No explosions, no energy spikes, just gone. Sensor ghosts where there had once been mass. In the shadow of the gas giant Keleth, the twin moons Irix and Thomea simply ceased to exist. Around Ardent Prime, the crimson-haloed moon of Tal, famous for its bioluminescent coral oceans, flickered out of every scan. The Council launched quiet investigations, careful not to alert member species. But internal fear simmered. On day 11, the human delegation released a public statement. The Galactic Council has taken one of our own. We will not ask again. Attached was a quantum packet transmission. It contained a single data feed, grainy, low-light footage of Lyra inside a sterile chamber, chained to a gravity anchor, her vitals slowly degrading under unfamiliar atmosphere. A timestamp proved it was recorded 3 hours prior, on Council ground, inside their highest security black site, Site Zeroin. Panic spread fast. The Council denied the video's authenticity. Then their outermost lunar base at Signal Verge, a hardened military station orbiting a cold dwarf star, disappeared without trace. Not destroyed, not attacked, simply absent from space-time. No wreckage, no debris. Its gravitational pull had ceased, its light signature erased. The Council finally understood this wasn't a threat. It was a campaign. They summoned Earth's ambassadors, desperate to explain. The response came not through diplomats, but through a broadcast from Cale Holt himself. His face filled the galactic feed, pale, weathered, resolute. "You have 24 hours to return my daughter," he said, voice steady. "After that, your moons will vanish in sequence. One every hour. This is not vengeance. This is physics." The Council's scientific core scrambled to decrypt what he meant. That's when someone mentioned Lyra's research. Gravitational harmonics in multi-body systems. Predictive frequency interference. She wasn't just studying moons. She was mapping how to make them disappear. Not explode, not move, but phase out of reality, slingshot into dimensions unaligned with council physics. She had cracked it, and now her father was using it. The horror wasn't in what was happening. It was in what couldn't be stopped. The council deployed fleets. Earth was silent. No response from Mars Command. No signal from Luna Core. But something shimmered on the far edge of the Orion Drift. A structure so vast, its mass bent light before telescopes could focus. It was the Soul Gate Array, activated for the first time since its theoretical construction plan had leaked 5 years earlier. No one believed Earth could build it. No one had known it was already operational. They had pulled her into darkness. Now Earth was pulling the darkness around them. The Council had no precedent for this level of escalation. Every protocol assumed humans could be contained, reasoned with, or coerced. They had not considered what happened when a parent lost everything. Cale Holt wasn't negotiating. He wasn't invading. He was deleting. And still, Lyra remained missing. Here is Chapter 2 of your HFY story. The Galactic Council kidnapped one human. Now their moons are missing, written in paragraph format and approximately 8,000 characters long. Lyra awoke to silence again. Not the silence of space. She knew that sound well. The deep mechanical hum of life support. The distant chirps of status lights pulsing in a well-tuned rhythm. This was different. Sterile, calculated, and terrifying. She had no clock, no window, no orientation. Just the dim glow of the gravity anchor embedded beneath her spine, keeping her pinned like a museum specimen. Her body ached, not from injury, but from restraint. Whoever had taken her wasn't trying to break her. They were trying to erase her. Not just her presence, but her meaning. She wasn't alone. Sometimes she'd hear the shuffle of boots, the hiss of recycled air as a door sealed far down the corridor. They never spoke. They never responded to her voice. The lights shifted hue every few hours, a poor man's day-night cycle meant to disorient. But Lyra's mind wouldn't dull. She repeated the formulas in her head, the harmonic resonance models, the deep core oscillation maps she and her team had labored over for years. The ones that had made the Council nervous. The ones her father had once warned her would make enemies if she wasn't careful. Cale Holt hadn't been seen publicly since the last Earth Council summit 2 years ago, when he'd warned that Earth sovereignty wasn't up for compromise. He'd said it calmly, with a glass of whiskey in hand, and walked out mid-speech. The diplomats had laughed. Earth flexes again, one envoy whispered. But no one was laughing now. Across the Council's inner systems, moons kept vanishing. It had become a countdown, predictable, horrifying, unstoppable. One every hour. No explosions. No survivors. No evidence left behind. Just absence. Some had life on them. Others, critical defense stations. By day 15, 23 moons were gone. Panic turned to paralysis. Council meetings devolved into screaming matches and desperate theories. Was it Earth's black ops? An AI revolt? A rogue planet-killer weapon? None of it mattered. The only voice the humans offered was Admiral Holt's, repeating the same message across all channels. Return my daughter. They tried to negotiate, pleaded with Earth's remaining diplomatic envoys. But the envoys had no clearance. Their instructions were simple. Deliver the message. Await further orders. The Council's chair world, Altherian, doubled its orbital fleet. Civilian stations were evacuated. But their enemy wasn't storming gates. It wasn't even present. It simply kept erasing what should have been unerasable. Deep inside Site Zeroin, a Council scientist entered Lyra's chamber for the first time. He didn't wear a uniform. He carried no weapons. Just a small chair, a datapad, and a look of guilt that barely masked his fear. My name is Dren, he said. I'm not here to interrogate you. I just need to understand what your father is doing. Lyra looked at him like he was the mad one. You kidnapped me. You erased my ID. You erased my entire team. And now you want my help. Dren winced. I didn't authorize your detainment. I opposed it, but I wasn't high enough to stop it. They thought you'd stumbled onto something too dangerous. Your model predicted oscillation collapses between moons and their primaries, entropic resonance. That kind of instability could collapse a binary system if weaponized. Lyra sat up slowly, the gravity anchor deactivating for the first time in days. We weren't building a weapon. We were mapping structural weak points. Gravitational fingerprints. It was supposed to help prevent catastrophes, not cause them. Dren's face turned pale. Then how is your father erasing moons with it? She shook her head. You people never understood Earth. We don't need your permission to finish our own math. Outside Site Zeroin, human shadow fleets moved like myths, untraceable, silent, and immune to Council tracking tech. Earth had learned early that brute force wasn't enough. So they went quiet, invested in displacement tech, mimic beacons, field-bending hulls. Their ships didn't attack. They observed, scanned, waited, and now they had one goal: extraction. Cale Holt wasn't acting on behalf of Earth's central government anymore. He had gone rogue the moment Lyra disappeared. But rogue didn't mean alone. Thousands had joined him. Retired admirals, off-grid engineers, AI specialists hidden in the asteroid belts. Entire moon colonies stopped transmitting, not because they were under attack, but because they had joined him. This was no longer a military operation. It was a belief system. You do not take one of ours. On day 16, the Council made a final offer. Return Lyra. Amnesty for Holt. Ceasefire. Negotiation table. Earth's diplomats didn't even respond. The next hour, the twin moons of the Council's founding planet vanished mid-rotation. Their orbits collapsed. Tidal lockdown failed. Oceans rose. Cities drowned. Council members who had voted for Lyra's detainment fled off-world. But there was nowhere safe. Cale Holt wasn't aiming for territory. He was unraveling the Council's legacy. Inside Site Zeroin, Dren made a choice. He overrode the base AI and smuggled Lyra out using an emergency medpod routed through a decoy biosignature. It wouldn't get far, but it would be enough. Lyra's escape triggered every alarm in the facility. As she hurtled through vacuum in a life capsule, she sent out a single burst transmission. Dad, I'm out. In that moment, everything stopped. For 8 hours, no moons disappeared. Council chatter surged. Was the war over? Had Earth received their prize and gone quiet? Could negotiations now begin? Then Cale Holt reappeared on every public channel. He wore his admiral's coat, unbuttoned, with the weight of a man who had finished something irreversible. Behind him stood Lyra, alive, weary, silent. He looked directly into the lens. You don't get to walk away, he said. The feed cut to real-time telemetry. In the heart of the Council's core system, where 3 moons orbited a sanctuary world used only for Council heritage ceremonies, all 3 celestial bodies vanished in synchrony. But this time, they didn't just disappear. They imploded. Their gravity ripped inward, folding space-time around them. The resulting wave shattered satellites, tore station hulls open, and silenced every broadcast for minutes. When feeds resumed, the world below was a scar. Cale Holt's final words played once more. You don't get to walk away. It sent a message, not just of vengeance, but of warning. You cannot contain what you refuse to understand. You cannot enslave what has already survived extinction. And you cannot kidnap a human and expect the universe to remain intact. Silence. That's what remained after the final implosion. Not just the silence of shattered satellites or broken diplomatic lines, but a deeper, more existential kind. It spread like fog through every corridor of the Council's fortified spires, into every senatorial chamber, through every comms hub. The sanctuary moons were gone, and with them, the illusion of control. The Council had once ruled not by force, but by consensus backed with quiet coercion. But now they understood that consensus means nothing to those who have been erased from the table. Cale Holt hadn't just destroyed moons. He had destroyed mythologies. He had ripped the sanctity from their history and replaced it with fear. Not just fear of Earth, but of what Earth had become when provoked. Lyra stood beside her father aboard the Oblivion Spine, Earth's most secret deep space flagship. Its hull didn't shimmer or shine like the elegant vessels of the Council. It devoured light, cloaked in obsidian alloys woven with anti-sensor tech so dense that it bent perception itself. It had no markings, No flags, just mass. Presence. Vengeance made metal. She was thinner than when she'd been taken. Her voice had a rasp that hadn't been there before. But her eyes held a calm that silenced even the most battle-hardened officers aboard. This was no longer the physicist they remembered. This was the woman whose research had been twisted into a cosmic blade, and who had returned to decide where it pointed next. Kill didn't speak much now. The council had responded with nothing. No more threats. No more offers. Their arrogance had been shattered, and their hierarchy fractured. Many member species began pulling their fleets home. A few even issued statements condemning the kidnapping, attempting to distance themselves from what had become an uncontainable scandal. But Earth didn't need their apologies. They weren't looking for moral victory. They had already rewritten the rules. The Soul Gate Array, hidden on the edge of human territory, was now fully active. It shimmered with raw spatial tension, folding space in layered pulses like ripples on a multidimensional lake. It wasn't just a wormhole generator. It was a surgical instrument, designed not for travel, but for removal. Entire objects could be locked, tagged, and shifted out of sync with standard spacetime. Moons, stations, fleets. What had taken decades to build could be erased in seconds. No fire, no wreckage, no martyrs, just deletion. Lyra stared into the projection room as 100 potential targets danced in orbit around holographic stars. She didn't recognize many of them. She didn't need to. This wasn't about recognition anymore. This was about the future. "They're splintering," said Commander Yates, one of her father's oldest allies. "The inner rings are breaking off. The Gorthan Collective is mobilizing outside the Council's command net. The Threx Dominion just issued a neutrality pact with Earth." Lyra tilted her head. "And the Scifilore?" Yates nodded slowly. "They're asking for a summit. Not with the Council. With us." Earth's seat at the galactic table was once ornamental. A nod toward inclusion. A trophy placement. But now it had become the table itself, because the old one had collapsed. Power had shifted, not with votes or treaties, but with math and mourning. The equation had changed, and every species was rushing to solve for survival. The Council, meanwhile, was bleeding internally. Its chair species, the Elysians, had lost their capital moons, their outer colonies, and now faced rebellion from within their own ranks. Whispers of coups spread through encrypted diplomatic channels. Every high-ranking official who had signed off on Lyra's detainment was either dead, disappeared, or in hiding. And somewhere in that chaos, Earth's name became legend. Not through speeches, not through parades, through fear and precision. But Cale Holt wasn't celebrating. He stood in the strategy core with arms crossed, gaze fixed on a pulsing line of data. "They're hiding something," he muttered. Lyra moved beside him. "The Council?" He nodded. "Something bigger. You don't kidnap a civilian researcher unless you're trying to bury more than a discovery. You were a threat before they knew it." She considered that. Then it wasn't about the moons. Cale turned slowly, eyes meeting hers. "No, it was about what you might have found beyond them." She stepped back, understanding blooming like a new star. Her models hadn't just identified instability. They'd mapped harmonic signatures that shouldn't have existed. Echoes from dark zones. Signals bending in from outside known spatial frameworks. She had thought they were anomalies. But anomalies don't get people kidnapped. In the deepest archive of her simulations, one result kept appearing, a gravitational whisper from a system the Council had sealed off centuries ago. Codenamed Sector 0, a dead space. Forbidden. The math suggested a structure there. Not natural, not Council-made. Something older, something buried. Lyra had flagged it once, long ago. A curiosity. She had never looked again. Until now. With the Council collapsing, access was no longer denied. Earth launched a probe. It slipped through the decaying outer zone of Sector 0 and returned a stream of fractured images. Ruins, rings, machines the size of planets. Some still active. At the heart of it all, an object shaped like an eye, suspended in gravitational stillness, pulsing once every 6 seconds with energy signatures unlike anything in Council archives. A message encoded in its pulses, Do not awaken what we imprisoned. Lyra stared in silence. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about something deeper, something ancient. The Council had silenced her not to protect themselves, but to protect the galaxy. Or so they believed. But the truth was simple. Power had changed hands. And with it, the burden of choice. Cale Holt turned away from the projection. You decide what we do next, he said. You were the one they feared. Lyra stepped forward, eyes locked on the pulsing eye across light years. Then let's find out what scared them so much they tried to erase an entire world to hide it. Across the galaxy, species recalibrated their future. Not around the Council, but around the humans. Around a girl who had been kidnapped and returned with the stars at her fingertips. Around a fleet that didn't conquer, but deleted. And around a silence that warned, never take a human again. Because the next time, it might not be just moons that go missing.